We can't fix through logic or legislature. We cannot. We've been doing this for decades. We can't fix from the level of brokenness. We are being called to create anew. Thank you, Celebration. I appreciate it. If I can just do a name call, because sometimes, it's a group and you just think, they're Celebration. Well, who are they? We've got Kim in the back there, gorgeous in gold. Then we've got Lori doing the mohawk thing. We've got the amazing Shonda with the lungs and voice that's just, oh my gosh. And then beautiful and just vibrant Tony. You know the smooth talker Roderick. We've got Tom with the beautiful voice. And I'm missing someone, but that's okay. John just kind of tripped off a little bit. But then we've got Matthew, who is, I don't know how we could do this without you. We are just super grateful. And then we've got Glenn on boom, boom, boom bass. And Stephen on drums. Yeah, sometimes, I forget to kind of unpack that a little bit. Oh my God, Bri, I did. You moved on me. I'm sorry. And we have Brian, who is guitarist, tech, video. Thank you. My bad. And here comes Waltzing and John. So you can give John a hello. It does take all of us to do this service, And then I look over to my left at my buddy over there, Becca, who's going to be leaving in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. $15 days for Honolulu. So, there it ends. It ends right there, Honolulu. So in case you're wondering, we are celebrating, right? We're celebrating Christmas in July. I'm all blingy in red. And in case you wondered why I wasn't up dancing on that last song, I've got some Brits in the house, and I just didn't want them to feel like I was too loud for them, My brother-in-law, right there, Ian. My nephew, Callum. Behind them, my beautiful sister-in-law. And then Kira, my niece over there. So they've come over from the UK for a week. They're staying a week with us. And we haven't seen them in 5 years-ish. Yeah, it's too long, yeah. I didn't recognize my nephew, so that's how scary that was. I was like, I would have passed him on the street and not recognized him. He's just become a guy now, what? So it's been really beautiful having them, and I'm just really, really pleased that you're here, so thank you. Okay, that's the family. I know. All right, so what have we been doing this month? What? Burning up. Well, yeah, okay, thank you, Opal. We've been burning up. It's been really hot here. Yes. But we've been doing some myth busting this month, right? July's been myth busting, and we've been looking at, what did I say?
God on trial, and then we talked about heaven.
Oh my God, she's got it all right down there. Yes, God on trial 1 week. Then we were talking about, does heaven exist? Last week, Becca was talking about the communion, sacrament of communion. And yes, it was started by Jesus on his Last Supper. And we don't have to relegate it as this Christian ritual, right? That we can honor communion as this sacred practice that anyone can do because it's a symbol of our communion with God and with each other. So we are just on fire. So today, I said, well, let's talk about Christmas in July, right? And I thought about this theme because so often Santa Claus and God kind of get smushed together and merged. And so when we're talking about one, it's like the other. So I thought, well, let's use this as a time to really look at who God is. And let's talk about who Santa is as well. So we're going to look at that, and let's start first with Santa Claus. What do we know about Santa Claus? Santa Claus, first of all, we know he's also called Father Christmas, right? And he gives presents to children that are well-behaved children, and he does it all on Christmas Eve, in that one night, right? So I have some questions for you. What does Santa look like? White beard. Okay. What else? What does Santa look like? He's fat. He's old. He looks like what? Laps. Okay, north of Norway. Okay, good. Rosy cheeks. Yes. Where does he live? No, really far in the North Pole, right? It's not really easy to access, to get to. All right? And what's his profession? Jolly old elf. So what does he do? Toy maker. Yes, brilliant. He's a toy maker. And my thing is, how does he get all the gifts delivered in one night? One night. Magic. Magic. Yes, I heard magic. Yes. And how does he know if you're naughty or nice? What list? The naughty and nice list. Yes, the naughty and nice list. Okay, good. So let's now compare that to what we think God is and looks like. What does God look like? White beard. Old. What else? What? Kenny Rogers. I like it. What's going over here in the chuckle section? We can't repeat it? Okay, I'll leave you alone then. Where does God live? Far away, right? Way beyond north. Okay. What's his profession? Creator. Creator of what? Everything, right? Creator of everything. Okay. And how does God deliver gifts? Miracles. Miracles, right? Miracles. Could be also used as a little magic there. Yeah? All right. And how does he know who's naughty or nice? He knows all. Okay, what else? St. Peter. St. Peter rats us out? Is that what you're thinking? Okay. What about a book? He's got this book, big book, right? Okay. And what happens if you're naughty? Hell. Oh, yeah, we're going to hell, right? Okay. And if you're good? Going to heaven. All right. You can kind of see why we want to talk about this and deconstruct this a little bit, because they really sound very similar, don't they? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, when I was a kid, what I learned. I learned that God was our unseen Heavenly Father who loves us, cares for us, and punishes us, right? God was sovereign, King of Kings, right? That's God. And also, he was the destroyer of sinners. I was also taught about original sin. So if you believe in original sin, what that means is simply by being born, you're a sinner. So I was always awaiting to be smoked. Scary that I know how to conjugate that verb. Yes. And all depictions that I saw of God growing up was this old white man on the throne, right? And he had in his hands this big book of judgment. And that book records everyone's deeds. Deeds is another word for actions, yeah. And depending on your actions is how you will be judged. So my first question that I had to research, is the book of judgment a real thing? Is it real? Well, according to Revelation 20, verses 11 through 15, it says that it is. Ooh. Do my own sound effects too. All right, and here's what it says. It's written, "Then I saw a great white throne and him who sat upon it. From his presence, earth and sky flew away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Also another book was opened, which was the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, by what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead in them, and all were judged by what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire." This is the second death because, of course, one is not enough. "The second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire." Let's deconstruct that a little bit. The book of Revelation is written by John, somewhere around 95 in the Common Area in Asia Minor. Who's John? Some theologians say it's John, one of the disciples, while other theologians believe it was a Christian from Ephesus that was known as John the Elder. Whomever the author is, the style of writing is known as apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature. And it was very common in ancient times. It was a common style of writing. The way that this is written, you'll notice there's lots of symbols in John. You see, John was on the island of Patmos and was feeling persecuted, and he was writing for folks who would be insiders who would understand the references that he was using with those symbols immediately. So I want you to think of this as a code written for the people living in the first century who believed they were being persecuted by the Romans. Revelation is not about Armageddon. That's a coming. No. Nor is it about end times that is going to be in our future. Why am I talking about Revelation? Because when we read Revelation, we come up with the imagery of the God, right? The God sitting on a throne with his book, naughty or nice list, book of judgment, kind of reads the same way to me, right? And if you're naughty, instead of not getting a gift like Santa wouldn't give a gift, or maybe if he gave a gift, it would be a lump of coal. If you're naughty, you get thrown into the pits of hell, right? I mean, it's God, so I guess the stakes are higher, we'll say, yes? Well, I want you to come back next week because we're going to be talking about Satan and hell. Is that real? Where did that come from? So stay tuned. What I find really intriguing in all of this discussion that we're having is that kids stop believing in Santa on the average 8.4 years, according to a U.S. survey. What that means is, depending on the region in the U.S., kids start questioning if Santa is real somewhere between the age of 7 and 10 years old, right? And what do when they start questioning whether Santa's real? What do? They ask questions, yes. Who do they ask questions of? Their parents, right? They go to their parents and they're like, so tell me, Santa real or what, right? And when we get that question as parents, it's a mixed bag for us because it's like on one hand, the childish things are kind of being put aside and they're growing up. They're starting to individuate. They're starting to be curious of the world. And you tackle that subject with love right? You're like, yeah, let's do this. And you're encouraging. Yet, do we do the same thing when our children start questioning your version of God? And I'm intentionally using the phrase, your version of God, because for most of us, we grew up in a particular religion that had very specific and limiting realizations of God, that also had rules and regulations of how they think we need to live to please God. Sounds familiar? And most of which is not true. Oh, what? Did she say that? Yes, I did. Most of which is not true. They are simply man-made rules and ideas of people trying to make sense of God, trying to explain what God is. But here's the thing. Kids know. Kids know that your version of God is not true. And what parents usually feel at this point is this fear of failure. Fear of failure of raising our children as good Catholics, Baptists, Presbyterians, whatever name of the religion you want, just put it right there, right? And we tend to then double down on theology. So all of a sudden the kids are going more to like spiritual classes. We're going to church more regularly, right? That's usually the behavior that happens around that. Now, my personal experience when I was at home and in Catholic school was really to be shamed because I was questioning the existence of God. I was seen as the doubting Thomas. And I came to believe that my faith wasn't strong enough for me to have a relationship with God. I internalized that. But here's the thing. I wasn't questioning if God exists. I knew there was something larger than me, greater than me, that was loving. I was questioning the reality of what I was being taught that God is. What's also interesting is that we may give ourselves permission as kids to question Santa. And yet, as adults, we don't give ourselves permission to question what God is or the reality of God. It's once we've been indoctrinated as children into the understanding of God, we just continue on, never really checking to see, is that true? Does that fit? Unless there's a significant life event. And if there's a significant life event, then we've got three options usually to choose from. One, we continue on in that indoctrinated belief about God, going through the motions but never really feeling that connection. We stop believing in God because the God of our understanding of our childhood doesn't make sense anymore. The third is that we go search for truth, for God. Now, many of us here in Unity have gone on that search, right? We are mostly known as refugees, meaning that we are coming from other faiths, from other religions as we are seeking truth. Sure, there are a few unicorns, and I call unicorns those folks that were blessed to grow up in Unity. And why are they the unicorns? Because they don't have to undo all the dogma and beliefs that we got indoctrinated and hammered into us. Those of us who are refugees often bring our old ideas of what God is to these new spiritual communities, and then we kind of put a positive spin on it, and then it's kind of jarring and it doesn't really work for us. So I just want to be clear on how we see God here in Unity. Here in Unity, we do not see God as this larger-than-life old man with the beard with superpowers, right? We don't do that. I'll share with you our co-founder who wrote in the book Dynamics for Living. He gives us an idea of what we need to release about our old ideas of God. We must relieve our minds of a personal God ruling over us in arbitrary, man-like manner. God is not person, but principle. God is not person, but principle. By principle is meant definite, exact, unchangeable. So what Fillmore is really saying here is that our belief in an anthropomorphic God is really an old construct that some old men created a long time ago. It's not truth. When Fillmore is using the term principle, he is basically saying that God is energy. God is energy. And we can try to describe that energy by names such as principle, love, spirit, right? Oneness, divine mind, the Christ, the I am, the sacred, source, plus a plethora of other things, right? And then my favorite early writer is Emily Cady. Her book, Lessons in Truth, and she reminds us that God is not a being or person having life, intelligence, love, power. God is that invisible, intangible, but very real something we call life. God is perfect love and infinite power. God is the total of these, the total of all good, whether manifested or unexpressed. So what does this mean? It means that God is in everyone and everything, right? In you and I. God is absolute good. And we humans, we live in this plane of existence. It's a relative world, and we have free will. And when we have free will, we can choose to be light or to be darkness. It's our choice. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that we had God on trial here because we were seeing all the atrocities and the war that was going on in the world. And we wanted God to be accountable. How could he let this happen? And then we came to realize that God is not a superhero and not coming to save us. That each of us is imbued with divinity, and we are here to save ourselves and our brothers and sisters. Now, when we do this work, we also have to say that we are also responsible for going into agreement with everything that we are seeing in the world today. And that can be a really daunting concept. To know that each of us have gone into agreement with existing systems. And when I'm talking about systems, I'm talking about things like law and order, health care, governance, capitalism, socialism, education. Those are the things I'm talking about when we talk about going into agreement with systems. I'm also referencing the labels we put on people and things to say, these are the accepted norms of society. So if you stay within this boundary, you're okay. And we're taught these terms, we are taught these norms from the time we arrive on planet Earth. Why are we taught them? Because our parents want us to be good citizens. Because it's all they knew. They didn't know any other way. They learned this from their parents and their parents before them, right? So we can let them off the hook for showing us this and teaching us this because they did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had, right? But as we spiritually awaken, what's happening is we are seeing that these systems are broken and biased. Broken and biased. How are we seeing that? How are we saying that they're broken and biased? Well, you see the outpicturing of government telling women what they can and cannot do with their bodies. That's a broken system, my friend. We are seeing that a valuable education is not available to everyone. That's a broken system. We are seeing that the validity of same-sex marriages are now being questioned whether they're real or not. That's a broken system. And these broken systems, they impact us consciously and also unconsciously. Unconsciously is the thing that's really, it's just kind of ingrained. I'll give you an example. This week, we had a memorial service here, and a homeless person got in. And I spoke with them, and we tried to support them, and then they decided they would not leave. And they also went into a mental break, right? It got to the point where they couldn't even verbalize anymore. And so we had to call the police and we had to call the EMS to come out. So they came out to the door, and several of us were just standing out front there waiting for the police to come, and the police comes, and I realized I was concerned that if I opened the door for them, they could possibly think I was the homeless person. So I asked this sweet, kind, one of the most gentle people that we have on staff, Melissa, who you know is the bookstore manager, to open the door. And then I looked to my right, and I was like, I don't want to open the door. And they were like, I don't want to open the door either, because they're non-binary, and they were concerned about the judgment that would come from the police. That's not a way for us to live in society. That's not a way for us to be. That's a broken system. So most of us agree that many of the systems are broken. And we agree that the systems that have been put in place initially were to support us. That's why they came in. That's why healthcare came in. That's why education came in, to support us. But somewhere along the way, they have really been co-opted into something else. And yet we are afraid to call these things out because we feel overwhelmed. We feel overwhelmed, and we don't have an answer. We don't have an answer of how to fix this. And here's the thing I want you to take in, if you take nothing else in. If all the rest of this was what, that's okay. We can't fix through logic or legislature. We cannot. We've been doing this for decades. We can't fix from the level of brokenness. We can't fix from the level of brokenness. We are being called to create anew. We are being called to create anew. Now, you know I'm a big fan of Paul Selig and his guides, and I think of it as New Thought 2.0, because there's really a blueprint of how we can work towards creating anew. And one of the things that they do is they give attunements, and those attunements are to help us, support us energetically as we do this transformational work. And one of them is, I know who I am in truth, I know what I am in truth, and I know how I serve in truth. And here's what that is really about. They say underlying truth, which simply means the antithesis of the lie of separation. In union, all things are made new. You are not deciding to improve upon the old. I'm trying that again. You are not deciding to improve upon the old. You are reclaiming what must be seen as of its nature, its true source, at the cost of the old ideas that would hold it in a lower field, a lower vibration. So basically, what these guys are saying is that we have to work beyond this realm. We've got to take our vibration up to another level. It's about coming back to oneness, understanding that we are one with God and with each other, understanding that we are divinity in skin, and we have said yes to incarnating now in this very chaotic time to create anew. So this is the kind of work that I'm super excited about. This is the kind of work that I came here to Unity Church of the Hills to do. And I'm just praying that you are going to hold my hand in this work and do it too. Thank you.